Hey guys, and welcome back to Creme Cafe. I'm so excited to have you here. Today we're going to be talking about a case that can trigger some people. A lot of cases can, but this one is going to be discussing some domestic violence, and it will be domestic violence within a teenage relationship. So I just want to put a disclaimer out there that if that is a trigger for you, then you'll want to click out this video. There is a couple other videos that I already have up on my channel that you can go watch, because the last thing I want to do is trigger anyone. So that being said, I'm gonna get right into today's video. So go grab yourself a cup of coffee or whatever it is that you want to drink and come join me. This case is about Emma Walker. She was born in March of 2000 in Knoxville, Tennessee, in a low-key town. Emma was described as being super sweet, really down to earth, and people just loved her. She was absolutely beautiful, and people had nothing but positive things to say about her. She wanted to be a neonatal nurse when she got older, which I just find so fascinating. People who become nurses are angels. She did tons of volunteer work at animal shelters. She did competition dancing, and she was the only freshman to make it on the varsity cheerleading team. And she was actually really silly and goofy too.
But she was goofy too at the same time. She could do the worm. You know, all of her other moves were kind of like, okay, Emma, you should probably stop now.
So Emma's freshman year, she met Rylee. He was the star of the football team, and he was a great student. They met in church. He was actually kind of nerdy growing up, really into Star Wars, and Emma just had such a crush on him. He was 2 years older than her, and he was actually dating someone else at the time that he met Emma, and he left that person to be with Emma. Rylee actually promised his ex that he would take her to the prom. She already had a dress and everything like that, and he did end up taking her to the prom, and Emma's parents didn't like that too much. That was a red flag for them. So after this point, they started breaking up off and on, which is a red flag completely. He didn't want to do much with her friends. He didn't really like her friends. He didn't want her to do much with her friends. He got mad if she wore certain things. He would even go to her work when she was working. He would show up there and just kind of hang out and watch her. And then when she was able to hang out with her friends, he would just text her the entire time and wouldn't leave her alone. He even, the one time when she was out, she was completely ignoring him and just so annoyed with him. And he was Snapchatting her and sending really awful messages and saying that he was going to kill himself if she didn't answer him. And that's a cycle of abuse. If you find that back and forth, that controlling behavior, the getting mad and then being okay, the love, hate. I'm no stranger to that kind of relationship, and it's textbook. That is exactly what happens. And when they're good, they're great. And when it's bad, it's completely awful. So Emma was dealing with that, and that's really hard to break from. So Emma's parents noticed what was happening to her, and they really stepped in and tried to do everything that they could. And they banned her from seeing him. They took her phone. They made sure that they knew where she was at all times, so she wasn't hanging out with them. And she still found a way to have Rylee in her life. He gave her an iPod Touch, and her parents didn't know that she was still able to talk to him on that because it wasn't a phone. So they were still communicating. They dated on and off for 2 years, and then Rylee ended up going to college, but it was just a half hour away, so it wasn't far at all. But her parents really banned her from seeing him, were really up her butt about where she was. And it actually seemed like it started to work. And then on Thanksgiving break in 2016, Emma actually saw pictures of Rylee on the internet with a bunch of girls, and she got extremely mad and upset with him, and that was it. That was it for her. That did it for her. She was done. She told him that she was done, and even her, everyone around her felt like this was real. She is done this time. She's not putting up with it, and the breakup is real. Well, Rylee felt that way too, and he ended up telling her that he was going to kill himself, and he did take a bunch of pills, but it didn't work. So one night, Emma was actually allowed to go out after a football game, and she started to receive some really strange texts at around 11 o'clock at night. And it was saying that they have someone that she loves and she needs to come outside immediately. After getting these messages over and over and over again, she got a friend from the party, and they decided that it was time for her to actually go outside and see what was going on. She saw someone lying in a ditch, like down from the house, lying in a ditch. And she could tell that it was Rylee. So they ran to him, and he was acting like he was really confused. He was rubbing his head like he was hit on the head with something, and he actually said that he was kidnapped. They knocked him out, and they put him in a car and took him to that house. And Emma was extremely upset. Other kids were there. They were seeing this argument, and she didn't believe him. She was saying to him, you know, why are you doing this? Can you just leave me alone? And he swore that this happened. So the next morning, Emma was supposed to go meet her mom for lunch. So as she was getting ready, she's home alone, and she hears, it's around 10:15 in the morning, and she hears some intense banging on the front door. And she looks, no one's there. Like, she doesn't open up the door, but she's looking, no one's there, and the banging just keeps happening, and she's scared. And you know, with the text, she wasn't sure if Rylee was telling the truth or not the night before, and so she was nervous, and she texted Rylee and said, I hate you, but I need you. So she ended up not meeting her mom, and she had Rylee come over instead. Emma's mom came home, you know, looking for Emma because she didn't come to their lunch, and she saw Emma and Rylee sitting on the front porch together. So it was a really good thing that she didn't have him in the house. But her mom was pretty mad about it because she was not supposed to be around Rylee at all. And Emma was just she was just out of sorts. She was confused on what was going on with Rylee. She was terrified with who was bothering her. She didn't know who was messaging her, banging on her front door. She was just out of sorts. She just didn't feel completely safe. So that Sunday, she was pretty skittish. She was acting kind of nervous, on edge, and her dad wanted to make her feel better, so he took her out for some ice cream, and he said that she seemed perfectly fine. She was enjoying herself, and they had a good time out. And they came home and they went to bed like normal. In the middle of the night, Emma's dad heard a big bang that actually startled him out of his sleep. And he, woke up and went and checked on the kids because he had no idea where that bang came from. And he opened up each of the kids' doors, and they were fine. They were asleep in their beds. So he just went back to sleep. He chalked it up as just a noise from outside. So the next morning, breakfast is being made and everything. So Emma's mom went to her room to wake her up. She was usually pretty easy to wake, and she could just say her name a couple times and she's up. But Emma wasn't moving, so her mom went up to her and she saw that she was no longer alive.
I just tried to wake up my daughter for school, and she has no pulse. You said that she's non-responsive? Yeah.
The paramedics said that they thought that it was either a suicide or a drug overdose, or that she died in her sleep of some unknown reason. But as they investigated the room and, of course looked at Emma, they noticed that there was a hole in her wall, and that she had actually been shot. They figured that it had to be somebody that she knew because they knew exactly where to shoot the bullet in. It was from the outside. So they knew where her room was, and they knew where her bed was located in the room and where to shoot the bullet. So as they're talking to Emma's friends, Emma's family, so many people kept bringing up Rylee. And the cops did talked to Rylee, and they did not think that he seemed suspicious at all. They just thought that he seemed suicidal and like he wasn't in a good way. But the more detectives talked to Rylee, the more they can kind of see through his facade, they were thinking that it might possibly be him. When he was in the interrogation room, he said something odd that caught the detectives' attention, and he said that he thought he was at a friend's house. He said that he was pretty sure that he slept over his friend's house that night. Like, he couldn't remember if he really slept over or not. He can't say Emma's name at all. He calls her the girl. He dated her. He supposedly loved her, and he is calling her the girl. He did say that he called Emma from a friend's phone, and she didn't want to talk to him. She hung up on him and told him not to call her. So he was feeling bad about that. He left campus, drove around, had a mental breakdown, and he cried in the car and looked at pictures of them. That was his alibi. Now, Rylee's friend Noah came to the police and told them that Rylee actually asked him if he knew how to get fingerprints off of a gun. He also was texting his friend Alex about a gun and how had his grandparents' gun, but he had it back. He put it back at their house. He was just worried that they were actually going to look at him and suspect him, but he didn't do anything. But that was his worry. So his mom even asked him if he had a gun. He said no. Rylee found out that the boys were getting questioned by the police and everything, and he actually asked them to stop talking to the police. So that's when they were like, okay, this is serious. Like, we're pretty sure he did it. So the boys wanted to work with the police, and they got mics put on them, and they set up kind of like a sting, and they met up with Rylee. They had a little camera that the cops gave them, and like a key fob, I think it was, and they showed them how to set it up on the table and everything so the camera would be facing Rylee. And they were just talking in the room, and he was saying how he would never hurt her, but he just really needed to get rid of the gun, and if they could help him, that would be great. He also wanted them to take back their statements from the cops, and the boys were just agreeing to everything. They were acting like nothing was a big deal, and they would just like everything was all good.
I don't know who shot Emma. I put that on my life. I wouldn't lie to you right here, right now. I don't know who did. I would never hurt her a day in my life. I had that gun because I was scared about what happened. I know you don't believe me. You probably don't either. Whatever.
So they had to stop at his stepdad's house to grab the gun. And during this time, the boys are texting the police, who are following them in a different car, saying he has the gun. We didn't see it yet, but he has it. He brought it into the car. And they stop at a fast food place on the way. And then when Rylee finally gets to the river, because the boys are getting really nervous at this point, there's a gun in the car, and he knows that they were talking to the cops, and they're just really nervous about it. So they're texting the cops, and the cops just are riding it out. So when Rylee finally gets to the river and parks, and he gets out of the car with the gun in a bag, that's when the cops pull up, and they get all of them. Like, the boys know what's going on, but they made sure it didn't seem like they were in on it or anything like that. They found the gun and black clothing in the bag that Rylee had that he was going to get rid of in the river. They charged him with first-degree murder and 6 felonies. His trial was in May 2018, and his defense was actually that they wanted to get him on reckless homicide. He claimed that he just he was hoping that the gun would scare her, that his plan was to shoot it into the house and scare her so much that she needed him, and that she would call him again, just like the knocking on the door. Obviously that was him, and he wanted to just up that. He claimed that he didn't know that the bullets were going to actually go through the wall of the house, and he was found guilty. This was a classic case of an abusive relationship that gone terribly, terribly, terribly wrong. I feel awful for Emma and her family. Her parents did everything right. They did everything that they could to keep her from him, and that's tough. like I said, I'm no stranger to that type of relationship, and it doesn't matter what your parents are doing. Aside from picking up and moving, kids find a way. They find a way to hang out with each other and be around each other, especially when the one kid is being so manipulative and controlling, and just like they're not going to allow that person to be taken from them either. So, you know, just watch out for signs. The best thing that you can do is call people out. Just straight up call them out. Do not be afraid to do that, you know, because people that abuse others in domestic abuse cases, they're weak. They are very weak, actually, and you'd be surprised at the response that you'd get when you call them out. Yeah, it's just a sad case. It's awful. She was going to do great things. So that's all I have for today. Make sure to subscribe, hit the bell so you can get notified every single time I upload a video. You guys know that I'm trying to do Wednesday and Sunday for the Psycho Sunday series. Let me know how you feel about this case. I'd love to know your thoughts, your opinions. Put them in the comment section. I love to hear it all. And if you have any cases that you'd like for me to cover, let me know, and I'd love that. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so happy to have you, and I will see you on Sunday. Bye.